Let's imagine this. The most devastating moment in this entire scandal wasn't Doug, wasn't Jackie, not even Chris Webber. It was their daughter. Yes, Chantel Christie, usually quiet, usually left out of the chaos, was the one who collapsed outside the courthouse surrounded by flashing cameras, shaking, sobbing, holding a USB that's now being called the final nail in Jackie's public downfall. Because what Chris Webber revealed inside that courtroom didn't just break headlines, it shattered Chantel's entire world. Witnesses say she came face to face with proof that every word her mother ever told her was a lie. From timelines about her birth to the man she's always called Dad, gone. Chantel fell to her knees on the steps, crying out, "Why didn't you ever tell me the truth?" Paramedics rushed to help. Doug tried to hold her. Jackie stood frozen. And Chris Webber just looked down, silent. But inside that courtroom, the truth wasn't just emotional. It was documented. That same USB Chantel clutched? It held hotel surveillance footage, full message logs, and something even more damaging, a paternity timeline. So if you're wondering how deep this rabbit hole really goes, buckle up, because if Jackie thought the worst had passed, she had no idea what was still coming. Courtroom 3B was supposed to be routine, just another hearing in a mess that had already gone nuclear. But what happened in that room left even the judge in shock. The moment Chris Webber walked up to testify, the gallery froze. This was the same man who hadn't said a word for 20 years, never confirmed a rumor, never denied one. But now, he was ready, not to throw punches, not to make excuses, just to confirm. He adjusted the mic, cleared his throat, and delivered 6 words that stopped the room. "I was there the whole time." Jackie's expression dropped. Doug looked like the air had been knocked out of him. Chantel? She didn't move, just stared ahead. But Chris wasn't finished. He brought out a folder, filled with hotel receipts, text logs, handwritten notes, even saved voicemails. Some dated back to 2003. Others were from last year. "Jackie told me to stay quiet," he said. "But when I saw what it was doing to Chantel, I couldn't anymore." The courtroom buzzed. Phones lit up beneath the benches. Within seconds, blog pages had already blasted headlines. Chris Webber breaks silence, confirms years-long affair with Jackie Christie. But the biggest moment didn't come from Chris, it came from Chantel. That's right. The red USB drive wasn't his. It was hers. Doug and Jackie's own daughter stood up, calmly reached into her purse and handed the bailiff a flash drive marked in red marker. The truth. No more lies. The judge paused. Jackie tried to stop her. "Chantel, not like this, please." But Chantel didn't even flinch. She didn't even turn around. She just whispered, "You did this." The judge called a 10-minute recess to prepare for the contents. But outside that courtroom, it was already chaos. Reporters mobbed the courthouse steps. TMZ leaked text screenshots almost instantly. Messages between Jackie and someone saved as CW, with timestamps matching Doug's away games and even family birthdays. Doug sat on the bench, hands trembling. He turned to Jackie and asked quietly, "Is it true?" She didn't answer, didn't even blink. She just stared ahead, as if silence could still save her. She didn't blink, maybe hoping that if she stayed still, the nightmare would somehow vanish. But it didn't. Because the moment court resumed and the flash drive was inserted, the entire room froze. Tension thickened. The first file played, surveillance footage, grainy but damning, time-stamped at 2:14 a.m. inside a luxury suite at a Beverly Hills hotel. There, clear as day, was Jackie Christie with Chris Webber. It didn't show everything, but it didn't have to. Just enough to destroy years of denial, just short enough to leave the worst to the imagination. Doug stood abruptly, shaking. His Lawyer tried to steady him. Jackie finally broke the silence with a desperate whisper. I was lonely. You were always gone. He was there. But that wasn't the end. The next file opened. A letter, handwritten, personal, dated 2 months. Before Chantel's birth. From Jackie to Chris. The words stung like a blade. I don't know how to tell Doug. I think she's yours. Chantel didn't move. Doug slumped back into his chair, covering his face with both hands. And without saying a single word, Chantel stood, turned, and walked out of the courtroom. Cameras followed. Microphones chased. She said nothing. Just held that same USB in her hand, trembling, and then her knees buckled on the cold steps outside the courthouse. Paramedics rushed to help. No one had expected this. Not even Jackie. She tried to follow her daughter, but officers blocked her path. Chris Webber sat back down, his testimony complete. But the damage was irreversible. Court adjourned, yet the chaos had only just begun. An emergency motion was filed on the spot. A custody and paternity hearing now officially scheduled. Jackie buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Doug wouldn't look at her. The internet erupted within minutes. Hashtags like Yiking Chantel collapses, Yiker Christie scandal, and Actu Weber baby were already trending across all platforms. And amid the viral storm, one undeniable truth took shape. This wasn't just a broken home. This was a carefully crafted illusion, rotting from the inside out. And tomorrow, the court would unveil the final file from that flash drive. Ominously labeled DNA TTF. The courtroom doors remained sealed for nearly an hour after Chantel was wheeled away. Conscious but visibly traumatized, Jackie pleaded to be let through. Doug, pacing with bloodshot eyes and a crumpled suit, shook his head and whispered, "You've done enough." She sat back down, quietly crying. Chris Webber had already slipped out through a back hallway surrounded by private security, but the pressure in the room never lifted. When the judge finally returned, his face was hard, voice clipped, and in his hand was a printed document, now being called the most explosive evidence in the case. This file, the judge began, contains the results of a privately conducted paternity test. Subject A, Chris Webber. Subject B, Chantel Christie. The results show a 99.9997% probability of paternity. A wave of gasps swept through the courtroom. Doug didn't flinch. He sat motionless, whispering to himself, 17 years. And she let me believe. Jackie reached toward him. Doug, please. But he snapped, voice breaking, You let me name her. You let me raise her. Every birthday. Every milestone. And you knew. His voice cracked. The courtroom deputy edged closer, unsure if he'd need to step in. Jackie broke down. I didn't want to lose you, she sobbed. I didn't think Chris would want to be involved. It was one mistake. But Doug shook his head, rising from his seat, trembling. One mistake? No, Jackie. This wasn't a mistake. This was a strategy. But the judge wasn't finished. Also within this directory, he continued, is a signed non-disclosure agreement dated 3 months after Chantel's birth, signed by Jackie Christie and Chris Webber. Even the attorneys looked stunned. The document laid it out in full. Chris would never publicly acknowledge paternity, Jackie would never speak his name, and in return, Chris agreed to pay $75,000 annually to a private LLC named after a fake charity. The courtroom exploded. Reporters bolted for their phones. Legal teams began whispering in panic. Even Jackie's own lawyers sat frozen, wide-eyed. What started as a scandal of infidelity had now deepened into outright fraud. That so-called charity Jackie had proudly showcased on VH1, used for community outreach, for awards, for interviews, was exposed as a laundering front. It had claimed tax write-offs, accepted donations, even appeared in promotional segments. And now it was revealed to be the shell company funneling hush money from Chris Webber to cover up Chantel's paternity. Doug's voice cracked, disbelief, turning to devastation. You ran an entire scam, just to keep a lie alive. The judge slammed his gavel, calling for order. But that order vanished the moment Mona Scott Young walked through the courtroom doors. Yes, that Mona, creator of Basketball Wives, queen of televised drama, dressed in all black, oversized sunglasses, clipboard in hand, like she already owned the scene. Jackie's eyes widened. Mona, what are you doing here? But Mona didn't even look at her. She addressed the judge directly. My apologies, Your Honor. I've been subpoenaed. A few of our producers were aware of the NDA. There are emails, backdated footage, even unaired confessionals. The room froze. Doug whispered beneath his breath, So this was all for the show. The judge leaned forward, disturbed. Are you telling this court that VH1 producers had knowledge of a concealed paternity cover-up? Mona gave a cold nod. Not officially, but certain things were suggested. Cameras were told when to cut. NDAs were referenced. We thought it was just more Jackie drama. We didn't know, until now. The lawyers for VH1 started visibly sweating. This was no longer about cheating. It was televised fraud, paternity concealment, and potentially federal tax crimes. Doug's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we request an emergency injunction on all remaining Basketball Wives footage involving our client and the plaintiff. Jackie erupted. No, you can't do that. That's my story. The judge didn't hesitate. Ms. Christie, you don't own the truth. Jackie collapsed into sobs, covering her face with her hands. The court recessed again. Outside, the chaos only grew. A crowd had formed. Twitter exploded with trending tags. Ute jacked one. We Weber baby confirmed. Hake Chiu Doug deserves better. Huge Chantel collapsed. You, Mona, too. Back inside, Doug sat alone on a bench, hands clasped like he was praying. Reporters swarmed him as he exited the courthouse. One shouted, Doug, do you still consider Jackie your wife? He didn't answer, didn't blink, just kept walking. Mona was already on her phone, muttering, We're scrapping season 13. This is a whole new franchise. Meanwhile, Jackie sat by herself in a hallway chair. Her makeup smeared, her hair undone, her entire legacy crumbling. She unlocked her phone and stared at a single message from Chantel. I'm not mad that he's my father. I'm mad that you weren't my mother. Her phone dropped to the floor. The camera zoomed in on her face, hollow, haunted, but the nightmare wasn't over. Inside the courtroom vault sat one more envelope, unopened. It was labeled in handwriting. If anything happens to me, give this to Doug. Signed, Chris Webber. The room, still reeling from the DNA bombshell, watched in stunned silence as the envelope was handed to the judge. No sender, no legal stamp, just blue ink across the top. The judge broke the seal. Doug, who hadn't spoken since the reveal, finally lifted his head. Inside was a handwritten letter. The contents, enough to burn what little remained of the Christie dynasty to the ground. Doug, I never wanted it to go this far. She told me you knew, said the three of us had an understanding. But when I saw your face on TV last week, I realized she never told you anything. I'm sorry, I loved her once, but I never meant to take your family. Enclosed is the footage I kept for my own protection. If you want to use it, you have my blessing. Chris. The judge reached into the envelope again and pulled out a second USB. The screen went black, then static, then a timestamp. December, at 4th, 2022. 3:27 a.m. Location, Christie Residence, backyard security cam. Doug leaned forward. The footage rolled. Jackie, in a robe, snuck out the patio door. A car waited near the alley. The passenger door opened, and out stepped Chris Webber. She kissed him, then laughed, and then she said it. Doug really thinks he's Chantel's dad. Bless his loyal little heart. You could hear a pin drop. Doug didn't cry, didn't scream. He stood, walked straight over to Jackie's table, took off his wedding ring, and placed it in front of her. She reached for him. He pulled away. Without a word, Doug walked out of the courtroom. This time, for good. Jackie tried to follow, but a bailiff blocked her. "Ma'am, you're not done yet." Because as the footage ended, the judge raised one final issue. The video clearly showed willful concealment of paternity, a sustained pattern of manipulation, and potential misuse of nonprofit funds linked to a fake charity, all of which may fall under federal jurisdiction. Jackie's legal team panicked. VH1's attorneys started quietly packing up. And just when everyone thought it couldn't get any worse, the federal audit of the Jackie Christie Foundation and its financial dealings over the past 15 years was officially announced, turning the courtroom into a frenzy. Reporters scrambled for information while Twitter crashed under hashtags like Christie arrest coming, Webber warn, fraud wives, and Jackie gone. Outside, Chantel sat quietly in the back of an ambulance, hooked up to an IV, watching the chaos unfold on her phone. Her voice, barely a whisper to the nurse, revealed the painful truth. He was never the villain. He just told the truth. She was talking about Chris. Within the hour, VH1 released a statement putting Jackie Christie on indefinite hiatus pending further legal review and suspending production on Season 13. Doug Christie stayed silent publicly, but his lawyer confirmed he had filed for divorce and planned to sue for emotional damages, financial misrepresentation, and defamation. Chris Webber, through his representative, issued a calm statement saying, "I never meant to be part of a circus. I just wanted to do what was right. I wish Chantel healing and strength. That's all that matters now." The public reaction was divided. Some blamed Jackie for lying to her daughter, her husband, and the world. Others blamed Chris for staying silent too long and allowing the lie to grow. Many pointed fingers at VH1 for profiting from the chaos and now facing the fallout. Back in the courtroom, Jackie sat alone. No cameras, no Doug, no Mona, no Chantel, no Chris. Just the heavy silence of her own decisions echoing through the marble halls. Pulling her fur coat tighter, she whispered to no one, "I built this. I built all of this." But there was no applause, no sympathy. Legacy means nothing when it's built on lies. As she exited, flanked by assistants, reporters shouted, "Jackie, do you have anything to say to Chantel?" She paused, turned her head slightly, and with hollow, empty eyes said, "I gave her life. What else does she want?" By nightfall, the headlines were clear. Basketball Wives enters hiatus following legal scandal involving lead cast member Jackie Christie and paternity fraud investigation. A dynasty had crumbled, a father betrayed, a daughter broken, a husband humiliated, and a queen dethroned in public disgrace. But reality TV is never really over. Behind the scenes, one name remained conspicuously absent: the man who leaked. The footage handed Chantel that USB, the one Jackie trusted the most. When his identity is revealed, it becomes clear this was never just betrayal. It was a setup from day one. If you think Jackie's downfall was brutal, just wait. The real mastermind behind it all is about to step out of the shadows. Make sure to subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comments, and ask yourself, was Chris Webber simply clearing his name, or is he the true architect of this entire saga? Because next episode, the traitor reveals himself, and baby, he's far from finished.